and we'll talk about this. Let's start out by talking about this little announcement that you received in the mail. Telling you that there is a notice of a proposed sewer rate increase. And I actually did get a couple of phone calls from people that were confused. They thought this came from the Sanitation District. And it did not. It comes from the Sewer District. And the Sewer District is now, I think all of the people that finance this stuff, they have little meetings. They get together. And the guys from the Sanitation District said, hey, you know, a couple of years ago, we passed one of these things for 3 years and we got it through. So then the next year, the stormwater guys come to us and say, hey, we got 3 years worth of increases. And the sewer guys, not to get left out, they're going after it this year. So what they do when they tell you these kind of things, I love it, is they say, it's only going to cost $3 a unit. Well, and I got to give these guys credit. At least they didn't go and try to give us the rate monthly, you know, because that makes it seem smaller. But anyway, here's what they're going to do. Here's their plan. $3 a year per sewage unit per year says that it will go from what it is today of $32.50 to $41.50. Now, probably you've looked at this and you've said, well, wait a minute, that's not what my rate is. My rate right now, you might have looked at your tax bill. And when you look at your tax bill, you say, well, wait a minute, my rate right now is not $32.50. My rate right now is $40.50. And the reason why it's $40.50 is because they also have this cumulative capital overlay program going. And it's currently $8, and right now they're talking about just increasing it 1 year to $9. Now, I think what really makes this kind of an interesting discussion is, remember what this group is named. They're named the Consolidated Sewer Maintenance District. They maintain sewers, right? Does that sound logical, guys? Well, if they're maintaining it, then why do they have to reconstruct deteriorating sewers? So they tell us they're going to charge us to maintain it, and then they're going to charge us again to maintain it. What's it going to cost you? There's your price today. $40.50 is going to go up over 3 years to $50.50. Now, you might say, $50.50 on my tax bill is not very much. But when we start looking at this all together, we'll find that we're going to add three things, because this is a process that encompasses three groups. We're going to add the Consolidated Sewer District, currently $40, and the Sanitation District, which was $215, and we're going to add in the Stormwater District, which is about $20. So it starts to, well, let's see, that's $255, $275 this year. Next year, if you remember, the Sanitation District will go up to $247. And so it continues going along. So in this particular part of the group, we'll explain to you what each one of these groups do. The cum percent increase that they're asking for over 3 years is 25%. How would all of you like a 25% increase in pay over the next 3 years? That's a pretty good chunk of change. So you're going to have a public hearing. And who decides? Well, this is another one of those groups of Proposition 218 assessment districts that do not require a vote of the public. So in this case, the LA County Board of Supervisors are the directors of this district. And on Tuesday, May the 22nd, at the Board of Supervisors hearing room in LA, they're going to make the decision. And you can almost guarantee you that they will add the rate. So if you want some more information, there's a number to call, and you can get them on Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And we're going to I'm going to give them a call, because we'll have another meeting before then, see if we can get somebody out here to give us a little more hint as to why we need 25% increase. Now, some people are confused. they go, well, wait a minute, we got these 3 organizations. What do these 3 guys do? Well, the first one is the Consolidated Sewer Maintenance District. It is run by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works. It services a whole bunch of people, 42 cities, 2.3 million people. And in our city, in our area, they service the local sewers under the streets. They don't service all of them. Some of the larger trunk sewers are serviced by the Sanitation District. Then comes our part of the Sanitation District. And they do wastewater and solid waste management. Really, for us, well, that's what they do for us. They convert waste into resources, such as recycled water. They do create some energy in some of their plants and recycle materials. And for us, they take the output of our sewer system, run it through water treatment plants, and in some cases provide water for irrigation, which they do in Valencia, and in the rest of the cases they just then dump the water into the river. They serve 78 cities and 5.7 million people. The Sanitation District in our area, sanitation, stormwater, are different groups. That's not necessarily the case everywhere in LA County, but it is ours. In our case, we have the Stormwater Utility District. They provide for the maintenance of those stormwater drains that carry the water from the streets to the river. And so this is pretty much run by the city. They have their own separate little piece of this. This district does require a vote of the people, and we voted to reassign the way the fees are calculated last year, and then give them, I think, a couple years worth of increases. So what do these 3 systems all have in common? They're all part of this big system necessary to give us a clean living environment, and they all fall under a bunch of state and federal requirements. And the most important thing about these 3 groups is they're all on your tax bill. You get to pay for them all. So that's pretty much what it says. So if you look at it, here is my simple view of what we do, what our water use cycle is, from the time we get water until the time water leaves. And it's interesting because I'm going to kind of break the timeline a little bit, because we've been getting different pieces of information. We have a gentleman in the audience that's from the Sanitation District. So when I say some of these, I'm going to tell you where the information came from, so that then they can go back and we can go verify it or not verify it. Well, where do we get water from? Well, obviously, we get water if it rains, right? And we get water from the state. And we've been told right now that the state water is coming to us with about 40 milligrams per liter of salt and chloride. We also have groundwater. And as it was related in the CLWA meeting on March the 28th, Saugus groundwater is now running between 20 and 30 milligrams per liter. Other groundwater that comes from the rest of the wells have a little higher salt content, chloride content, of 40 to 50 milligrams per liter. So why is that important? Well, if all we were using was Saugus groundwater and we had 30 milligrams per liter of salt, and we added 45 milligrams per liter of using it in our household, that would be 65 milligrams per liter. Then added another 10 in the water treatment plant, that would be 75 milligrams per liter. We'd be under 100. No one would be asking us any questions. We'd be in compliance. So all of that water, in some ways, comes to our homes and businesses. And we don't particularly use it all in the same way. We actually divide it up, right? We water our lawns, and maybe wash our cars, and clean down the driveway. And that water runs off into the stormwater district. But water that we use inside our homes goes into the sewer system through either when sinks, in our bathrooms, showers, toilets, and we add a certain amount of chloride to it. Now, part of that still is this issue of self-regenerating water softeners. We now have a ban on new ones, and they're looking to eliminate them all. But as we were told in one of the recent city meetings, city council meetings, there still is a group of those softeners that are still out there. And so we probably could reduce this number some if we could ever find a way to target those, isolate, and get rid of them. So that water that comes through our local sewer system then goes to visit the sanitation district. And in the sanitation district, it goes through two water treatment plants in our area, one in Saugus and one in Valencia. And right now, to disinfect them, they're using chlorine, so they add about 10 milligrams per liter of salt. And the majority of that water then goes into the river. But some of it, right now, is being used for irrigation. Some of the golf courses in Valencia and so on and so forth. So all that water that doesn't go that way, or that's used for irrigation, either whether it comes out of the sanitation district or it comes from our home, or it just rains. All that water then goes through our storm drain system, and our storm drain system then deposits it in the river. So we have these three groups. I got the guys in the brown are the sewer district, and in blue are the sanitation district, and in this whatever color that is in the stormwater district, and everything ends up in the river, and we get to deal with it. So last month, I gave you a presentation about what was said at one of the city council meetings and what we believe that was to be the truth. And lo and behold, I was kind of happy to see that the sanitation district was listening. And Philip Fries contacted me. I had a discussion with him and asked him to watch our video so he could see exactly what happened. And he watched it and then gave me a call back. And so when we looked about it, we were in agreement. When people say right now there is no project, well, Phil and I are in agreement. There is a project. The EIR process represents the start of a project. Through this EIR process, they will determine how much of a project and what extent it's going to be, and that extent of that project has not yet been determined. The sanitation district will be looking at alternatives, and when they come up with alternatives, they will go ahead and give us their recommendation. And the construction funding has not been approved. By the way, if you send me your email address, I'll email you these charts tomorrow. Okay. So the funding has not yet been approved. But Mr. Fries provided us with some additional insight and some additional information relative to the chloride issue and what's going to happen with the Regional Water Board. Based on the May 27th Regional Water Board Notice of Violation, and that notice of violation, if you want to read it, is it's in my briefcase, is online, that those fines would be applied after May the 4th, 2015. I'm not really sure why, because that looks like 4 years to me, and we're supposed to get 5 years to develop an implementation plan. Mr. Fries also confirmed that the $21 million borrowed from the Capital Improvement Program by our directors, Ms. West and McLean, was going to be divided up for use. $2 million is for the EIR process and facility plan, and $19 million is allocated for design of the new facility. So it's a pretty hefty design activity. One thing I think that was a little confusing is when we went and we talked to the sanitation district guys at the meeting, we thought they were talking about piping advanced treated water between Valencia and the Saugus plant. And Mr. Fries said no, they are not going to pipe any water. That chloride compliance would be determined mathematically. So the plan is that if they do reverse osmosis, the reverse osmosis or advanced treatment to eliminate chloride would be done at the Valencia plant. The Valencia plant, which treats approximately 20 million gallons of water a day, is the big plant. The Saugus plant is a much smaller plant. I believe it's 6 or 7 million gallons a day, and does not have the capability. Does not have the capability of nitrate removal, and so they pipe water right now from Saugus to Valencia and then run it through the Valencia process. So that 20 million gallons a day is cumulative, and I'll show you that on a chart later what they talk about. Now, he also provided us detail on the Newhall Ranch water treatment plant, and this is very interesting because it's a difference of opinion between when we talk to CWA and when we talk to the Sand District or when we talk to the city. The Newhall water treatment plant is planned for 5 to 7 million gallons a day, and it will have reverse osmosis functionality. But the plan is to use most of the recycled water, most of the treated water for irrigation during the summer. Now, we asked that question. We were talking to people about that. Could we do that? And maybe I didn't ask the question the right way, because when the CWA guys were talking about it on March the 28th, they were saying, and I don't really understand how legally the Regional Water Board can do this, that if we start reverse osmosis, then we have to continue to run it, even if we're meeting the requirement. So I don't know whether they're really saying that they're going to run that plant constantly and they're going to use that water for irrigation that's been treated with reverse osmosis or not. But they are going to use, they are not going to put it in the river. But they will in the wintertime when the water's not necessary. We asked that question, and we were told that wasn't a viable option. But it is one of the options that we have asked them to evaluate in the EIR process. Mr. Freese also commented on a couple of errors that were in my presentation. I know you guys can't believe that, but every now and then I said that there were members, plural, on our local Regional Water Quality Control Board who currently reside in Ventura. That is inaccurate. There is currently only one member of the Regional Quality Water Board that resides in Ventura County, and he lives in Ojai. The other thing is I talked about the number of the amount of chloride in the river after it's blended with Piru Creek downstream from the county line, and that he reminded me, he gave me a geography lesson, is in Ventura County, not at our county line. It's in Ventura. So he again reiterated his desire to provide accurate information, come talk to us, and willingness to present at a CCAC meeting, and I think that was a really good thing. So we kind of was, I think we provided good information, and I think that we're being watched, and that's a good thing too, because we want to make sure that everything we talk about is accurate. Yet next, I had a member who emailed me and said, you know, I was the recipient of a phone call on a research company that were doing research on behalf of the Sanitation District, talking about whether we would be willing to, trying to poll us, whether we would be willing to pay, 50%, 100% more than we're paying today. And he sent in a public records request and sent that information to me. And I find that very interesting, because if this is something that we're being required to do, that we have no choice in the matter, why are you asking if we're willing to do it? Why are you spending money on this survey? Is there something more to this story than we know? It kind of makes me a little curious when people do that. So in the letter back to the gentleman that asked, it said the Sanitation District solicited competitive proposals from quality public outreach consulting firms to improve the effectiveness of the Sanitation District communication and public outreach efforts. God, that sounds familiar. Related to a chloride compliance project. So I tell you what, you want to do outreach? I'll offer you outreach. And we'll give him a call and we'll ask him to come see us. Well, when he talked about that, I was curious. You know me, I kind of start dabbling on the computer and start going out to people's websites and what can I find when someone tells me something? Well, I went out on the website and I found program draft environmental impact report. You know, that was the impact report that I told you I didn't read because the table of contents was 41 pages long. But I looked at it and I found out that, you know what, we're included. There's a discussion about Santa Clarita in there. I don't know exactly how much. But it talked about that this district Clearwater program was a comprehensive planning effort by the Sanitation District whose purpose is a master facility plan for the joint outfall system. And that kind of rang a little bell. Joint outfall system. Where have I heard that before? Well, I heard it at the sanitation board meeting. Not the board meeting, sanitation district meeting. And here, in the one of the charts, this chart, I picked this one right off of their website. And you can see that they're talking about different alternatives that are being studied. One alternative is this one over here, which is to put the deep well injection of the brine, the result of reverse osmosis. They get, according to the CLWA report that I heard, when you, for every 4 gallons of water that you process, you end up with a gallon of brine. And that was the pipeline that necessary for deep well injection. This long line right here, down past the 210, is, guess what it's called? It's talking about hooking up to what? The joint outfall system. And so that's going to be one of the alternatives. And if we join the joint outfall system, the question is, and I asked the gentleman here, he didn't know either right now, and we're going to ask the question, what does that mean to us? Does that mean that now we become part of the Clearwater project and there's another bill to pay? And I was just curious, you know, when I saw this, you notice it's headed in this direction? This is not west. This is west. That's Ventura. Isn't that shorter distance to go to Ventura? Huh? What?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
50 miles to the west.
Yes. Well, we'll have to figure it out. So,
I think they hook up with existing pipes. That's why it's not as long.
excuse me?
So I think they're hooking they're hooking the brine line up to existing brine pipes. That's why it's shorter to do it that way.
You mean to the joint connection to the joint outfall system?
To get to the outfall system.
Well, and the joint outfall system is if you actually connect it to it, it is a pipeline all the way to the ocean.
Right.
So that's what it is. So just at the same time that all this was happening, because I was going to tell you all this information and be really smart, but all I had was more questions. Because then Mr. and Mrs. Dunn gave me a video of part of the CLWA March 28th meeting. And in that meeting, they talked about the State Water Chloride Analysis Modeling Program presented by Dan Mesmada. Okay, thank you very much. And that was a study funded by the Sanitation District. And it's used to predict future chloride levels. So the whole idea about doing this model is, instead of looking in the past and saying, you know what, if we have to account for chloride in a drought or chloride in some other conditions, I mean, if money was no object, we could account for the 100-year drought or whatever that would be. If we were just going to go back 20 years or 25 years, we'd get one number. But the claim is that that model is based upon different conditions that exist today in both water supply and water treatment. And so they wanted to predict those based upon that future chloride levels. And you know what? Well, also, Todd Hoover at the last meeting asked me a question about upstream users, and they also did talk about that. I'm going to put this together, put some clips of this together that you can see. They also did talk to me about runoff from some of the upstream users in the San Joaquin Valley that get into our water supply, and that evidently does do that. I'll give you a chance to talk, Lynn. So they're talking about a proposed $100 million solution. The numbers are so big that I just stutter when I see them. But a $100 million solution with $50 million being for the possible plant that they're talking about, and then $50 million to get rid of the brine. And I'm really curious. I wonder if it takes $19 million to plan a $50 million project. So we're going to ask those questions. So, and are there any compliance solutions that do not require reverse osmosis? I mean, could we be at a point now where we would going to be compliant if we just go to UV disinfection? So here's the next step. We're going to peel the onion one more layer back. I'm going to contact the sanitation district. I'm going to ask them what the survey results were and really why they surveyed us. I'm going to ask them what effect will the CLWA study have on our chloride EIR, and are you working with the CLWA? Because that's one of the things that I find really disheartening is when it doesn't seem like one agency is talking to another agency, and who else suffers for it but us? What is Santa Clarita's part of the Clearwater program? I don't know. And when can you come and present all this information to us? Because I know you want to do outreach. So we're going to take this CLWA video study, and it's over an hour long, so it's just too long. And I'm going to try to request copies of presentation charts, and we'll pull some clips out of it where they say things that are very meaningful to us. You know, like if we start reverse osmosis, we have to continue with reverse osmosis. If we do this, you know, or this is the levels of water at these different places. And then I want to talk to the sand guys and say, you agree with this? Is this something you're in agreement with? And how can we use these numbers to benefit us? So not saying that anything more than we should get together. Well, you know what? This whole thing is becoming a national issue.
Yes, it is.
This is becoming a national issue. The term navigable waters. There's been some legislation proposed by Assemblyman Ryan, the Defense of Environment and Property Act, and he wants to define navigable waters to mean that they are navigable in fact, permanent standing or continuously flowing bodies of water, and it does not include things that have a lack of water or that water that flows intermittently or periodically provides drainage and rainfall. And in reading his website, these people in the rest of the country are suffering because a navigable river is being used to, navigable waterway is being used to define everything from marshes to everything else. So I was disheartened that I couldn't come to you with more positive information, so I decided to go on a little research. Okay? Based upon what this new bill, I decided to do some research and see what I could find in a river. Well, you know what? I noticed there must be a river around here because we have a boat shop. Right? It definitely is a boat shop. And you only have a boat shop where there's a river. And there's a fishing tackle store. There's a fishing tackle store. So I thought I would go down and see how many people were throwing a line in the water. Right? And we must have fish, right? Because there's places to cook it for us. So I decided I was going to go check and count the boats on the river. So I thought, you know, with a presentation that dry, we needed a little humor about anything. Lynn, did you want to say something?
I wanted to say something about that chloride report, which I finally read. And it's really not that long, and I recommend everybody to read it, especially the conclusion, which says that they really can't predict anything. But one of the things is, one of the things that you all should know is they're basing it on the 2009 reliability report, and they're saying, well, we had to reduce the water flow to down the aqueduct, and that improved water quality. Well, at the same time they're saying that, they're a party to the lawsuits to stop all of those biological opinions. So it's the state water contractors that are trying to increase the flow down to Southern California. As soon as you do that, you increase the chlorides. So it's like they tell you one thing in the report, well, if this continues on in 2009, and then they make every effort to have it not continue on and to have the water increase, because that's what they want, more. So I just think that when you are going through and evaluating that, and I really think you did a good job of bringing up the other side. I've been worried that the whole reason that they're doing that, trying to say that the state water project is not going to increase chlorides, is because, of course, you can't build anything in this valley without state water coming down from Northern California. So they want us to pick up the tab so that they can continue to develop, and they can continue to use that water for development. If their modeling is wrong, then we're going to all pay the fines for the chlorides, and it's going to go on our taxes. So that's kind of an easy way to do it. Say there's no problem, no problem, no problem. Oops, there's a problem, and then we'll just put it on the taxes. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say, is that the report's around. I can email it to anybody if you want to read it, and it's not that long, and it's kind of interesting if you're a water wonk. And you should run for CLWA. That's what? You should run for CLWA. We need you on there, I think. Yes, that's right. Yay.
Good.